Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to the Digitally Uploaded Podcast, the companion podcast at digitallydownloaded.net. My name's Alan, and with me this week I have Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
Well, that's great. Okay, well, go fuck myself, I guess. We also have James. Hello, James.
Hello.
Hi, James. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Thank you for putting in at least a little bit more effort than Matt. I appreciate that.
Matt set the bar very low.
Yeah, it's the opposite of limbo. And we also have Harvard. Hello, Harvard.
Hello.
Again, doing better than Matt, so everything's fine. So we've got a couple of things to talk about this week, so we're going to jump right
TIFA'S breasts.
We're going to ignore that.
Or just let the awkward silence sink in for a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's going to stay in. I'm not going to edit that out. That deserves to be in there. That has
be
more value than anything else.
We got to be mad about it, Alan.
We have nothing.
Infuriating.
It's just going to be four men complaining about the same thing.
Just never address the topic and just randomly say it throughout the whole podcast.
Yeah, TIFA'S breasts. It's a good topic.
It's not a good topic.
It's really not a good
There's
topic.
no content.
There's lots of content. I mean, that's kind of the point, isn't it?
No, there's not enough apparently.
Yeah, that's true. It's reduced content.
Because these people who have never seen breasts before don't know how they work.
I like how they're like. I mean, if you're listening to the podcast, go and Google
Are we
search.
talking about this?
We are now. Go and Google search for the new look Tifa from Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then look at the pictures of it, and then just consider to yourself for a second that actually there are people out there that think that those are B cup, like,
And they're mad
just
that
B cup.
they're too
And it's-
small because
Yeah, because they're B cup, when really they're more like D's. But anyway,
We have nothing to talk about in this situation, I feel. Nothing that's already been said can be added to.
yeah.
All right,
it's
we're going to go
true.
to music. This is dumb.
Miku music.
And it's not October, but we're going to be a bit spooky this week because apparently the entire games industry has decided that these last couple of weeks are the weeks for horror.
It's
Which-
nuts, isn't it? How many horror games have dropped? It's crazy.
Yeah. And like not even small ones, like fairly reasonably high profile as well. Like it's crazy. And
with
you'd think
more to
they'd
come.
wait it. Yeah.
With more to come too, because Sinking City is just around the corner. We can't talk about that yet, but I am playing it for review. It's just nuts how much horror's come out.
Yeah, and to that point, we're going to talk a little bit about Layers of Fear 2, which is the sequel to Layers of Fear 1, Color Me Shocked.
No way.
Yeah, but it's like not connected at all to the original game. It's very much like the Twilight Zone sort of thing where it's a different story.
Thematically, it is.
It is thematically, but like the actual narrative stuff is not.
Yeah, absolutely.
So whereas Layers of Fear 1 was more about like visual art and sculptures and stuff like that, traditional forms of art, Layers of Fear 2 focuses on cinema and film, which is really cool, and I really, really dang liked this game. Essentially, you are on a boat, which instantly, I'm not a fan of boats, especially old rickety boats.
You're not a fan of boats.
No, boats are.
What do boats ever
like a
do to
liberal
you?
myth. No, like I don't know. Boats are pretty cursed in terms of horror locations because you can't escape. It's basically just like it's space but with water. Which, like, no, you know what? No, you get what I mean. Like you're stuck on that boat. You're not going to live if you jump off the boat. You're dead.
Yeah,
so you're stuck on that boat.
I think that's why they like to use boats for horror.
That's what I mean. Like I don't like boats because of that.
Oh, okay. Now I'm on the same page as you. Okay.
Yeah. See, there's logic to the madness. So yeah, you're stuck in a boat and you are a actor, but that's all I'm going to say because the game sort of requires you not knowing much about it. Yeah, I think the game is a huge improvement over Layers of Fear 1. Even just in the visual standpoint, like the game looks gorgeous. You can tell that they made a bunch of money off Layers of Fear 1 and used that to fund this game, as well as, you know, the European Union Entertainment Fund, which is fantastic. The soundtrack's very pretty. There's a lot of really nice things that they've put in there, whereas I've made fun of Layers of Fear 1 for being generic horror spooks. Like Layers of Fear 2 tends to try a bit more, which I like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the way that they use the creative process as the seed of of madness and horror, because it's I think the creative process is a challenging one, and I don't think a lot of people quite appreciate what artists go through. Obviously, Layers of Fear is kind of an extreme metaphor on it, or it's not literally what happens to people when they make art, but they do go through a lot. And
they jump on a boat as soon as you start trying to make art, and you become the boatman. And
I think it's really nice the way that they've used that as the seed of the horror, because it is different to, you know, monster horror like Resident Evil and Silent Hill and whatever. It's a very different kind of.
I would say it's a bit more
horror.
Silent Hill-y than most other horror games, just because of the way that it changes rooms and stuff. It does that same thing where you look away and you look back and the room's different, and it's different in little subtle ways that you freak out and be like, "Oh, I don't like that."
Yeah, it's definitely a psychological horror. I mean, there's not too much physical threat through Layers of Fear or.
And what physical threat there is, like the one big fight, which I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, Matt.
Yeah.
Like that's probably the only real time that I struggled with the game, just because I didn't understand what it was trying to do, which is probably just a failing of the fact that it wasn't telegraphed particularly well. And when it was telegraphed, it was a bit, you know.
Yeah, I don't think the game did itself any favors having that physical threat in there, to be honest.
Bit of a waste.
I guess they probably felt the need, because otherwise it would get chalked up as just a pure walking simulator. And you know, people throw a tantrum about those things for some reason. I never understand it. But anyway, I thought it was a great game too. I absolutely loved it. I really liked the cinematic visuals, the way that they used they transitioned in and out of black and white. They used the kind of theater setups as sets and stuff. They used mannequins and all those kinds of props that you would expect from film. I thought that was really neat. I thought it was pretty hilarious. I don't know if you've seen the Jim Sterling video about Layers of Fear 2, but he was ripping into it being not very visually nice because it has black and white sections, and I thought that was pretty funny.
That makes sense.
I know. I know it's
Okay.
not. It wasn't Jim's finest moment, but he obviously didn't like it. I think it's a little bit more mainstream in the sense that I think more people can enjoy what Layers of Fear 2 offers than what the original did. And
I think it can market itself more as a traditional horror game than the first
yeah,
one.
I think it does check those boxes a little bit better than the first. So I think it's a good step up for the team, and made me really excited actually for the Blair Witch Project, which they're working on now. I think that's going to be pretty special because that comes from the same developer.
That's an Xbox exclusive, though, isn't it?
No, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Oh, don't tell me that, Alan.
Yeah.
Alan, you just ruined it. You ruined my life.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case. I'm sorry.
Well, anyway, I've got the Sinking City to play, which I'm looking forward to talking about in a future podcast. What other horror games has come out recently? Oh, Dollhouse. I wanted to mention Dollhouse because I have an issue with Dollhouse.
Do you want to say Dollhouse with more anger, please?
Yeah, it's making me very mad because it's actually a really nice game in the concept of it, because it takes place in this kind of noirish setting with the detective process and all that kind of stuff, and it has this really good kind of 30s 40s vibe to the setting, but then you get out of that introduction section, and the first thing that happens is you get thrown into this tutorial, which is literally go here, collect key, go here, collect matches, go here, collect chalk, do thing, and it goes on for like 2 hours around this randomly generated kind of hedge maze, and yeah, it's just the most painful introduction to a horror game ever.
For whatever reason, my brain...
And we've lost Alan a bit there. Alan will come back in a moment. He's faded out.
I don't know why that was the first thing that I thought about.
We lost you a bit there, Alan. What was that?
Oh, I was going to talk about like how I got really, really confused and thought you'd be talking about like a randomly generated hedge fund.
That would be funny. But yeah, I was really disappointed about that. I still haven't actually got through the tutorial bit because it just drives me nuts, and then I quit and go and do something more interesting. I'm hoping once I get through it, it gets a little bit more interesting. But yeah,
they need to grab you instantly with horror, otherwise, like...
Well, horror's a difficult genre, I think. I think it's a really genuinely difficult genre because it requires atmosphere. It requires very careful control over pacing. It requires a strong narrative. And I think a lot of developers do horror because it's a relatively easy one to program without really understanding the genre.
You just have a monster, you make the lighting very dark, and then you have the monster chase you. Like, it's a Slender thing.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of Slender, that came out on Switch this week.
So... The Arrival?
Yeah, The Arrival.
The game's terrible.
I've never played it, so I'm going to give it a go. It was only $10. I'm sure it is terrible, but anyway, I'll give it a go.
I'll give a shout out though. The original Slender on PC was surprisingly good for something that you just found off an exe file off the internet.
Oh yeah, it was a schoolyard myth, like that. Like you'd go to the computer lab when computer labs still existed, and you'd play Slender 1.
People would like in the early days of Twitch, you would live stream Slender 1, watch people freak out about.
Yeah,
what looked like nothing, but when you played it, you actually felt it. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
that game's all right.
James, you've been very quiet. Are you a horror fan?
Yeah, I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with horror games because I love them and they're great, but I get really absorbed into games. And I had a similar conversation actually with somebody else that digitally downloaded, and I can't remember who it was. But a conversation around, I think sometimes horror games struggle because how effective they are is really dependent on the player's susceptibility to horror. So I've got friends, for example, who will whack on a horror game, whatever it is, and they're not pay attention. They don't really get bought into the environment. They're just running around, clicking things, doing whatever. And so I'm just sat there in the background like, you're ruining this game. Like, you're missing so many parts of this game that are so good. But I get really absorbed into them. So I love horror games, but I sometimes avoid them because there's only so many new pairs of pants that I can buy. And some of the games I've played, like Outlast, really mess with me. Amnesia Dark Descent is still one of like the water scene in
that
Amnesia
water
Dark
scene
Descent.
is absolute art.
Yeah, it is. And like some people I know, for example, like some people I know played Amnesia Dark Descent and they hated the mechanic of actually physically having to really, like, well, playing on PC anyway, you had to go run up to a door and you had to properly click, hold, and actually have the animation with the mouse of actually opening and closing a door, which made that water scene so much more terrifying, because rather than just clicking a button to open the door, you actually had to stop and think and move and actually operate at doors if you had to do in real life if someone was chasing you.
Yeah.
And yeah, that water scene is absolutely terrifying, and like I struggle to go back to it now because it's that good. But the problem is that horror games, I try and avoid them only because I know that I'm going to get absolutely scared shitless from it.
Do you do the thing where you buy a horror game and then you just don't ever play it because you're like, yeah, no, I'll play that later? I do that.
The thing is, what I do is that like I'll buy a horror game, but I get really bought into it. So I will. So Amnesia Dark Descent or Outlast or whatever. So I played Outlast and turned all the lights off, put a headset on, so you've got no sense of what's going on outside of the game.
You have
anything that happens there. Anything. Well, exactly, but that's like just buying into it. That's trying to get into making the game kind of be more effective. Like I know Matt spoke to you recently about this, but even Resi 7, which I thought was an okay game, but I played it from start to finish for the first time only in VR mode, which made it 10 times more horrendous just for not trying to freak out. So I think you can complete the game in something like 10 hours, but I think it took me something like 45 to complete it in VR mode, because every single door frame you walked up to, you'd walk up to it and then you'd literally in real life sort of peek around the corner trying to see into the room, just see if there was anything there. And all those moments like you see in like classic horror trope films and stuff, when someone will hear a sound behind them and they'll turn around and then they'll turn back and there's all of a sudden there'll be something in front of them. Stuff like that actually did happen in that game, and the VR mode made that game so much more amazing. But yeah, I love horror games, but I'll only play them if I can get really, really engrossed into them. And yeah, I end up buying like 10, 15 of them and never play them because I'm too scared.
Yeah.
I have you were talking about Resident Evil there. I have a love-hate relationship with Resident Evil a bit. In the sense that I actually do enjoy the games, but I struggle to see them as effective horror games as such. And I know Alan and I have had this debate lots of times.
No, so I'm coming around on your argument here. That's the thing.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, so I played a whole bunch of horror games in the last couple of years because I've got a situation with my friends where we do like a spook night where every time one of us gets scared, we all have to drink. And the best horror games that we've played for that situation have not really been Resident Evil. Like Lost in Vivo was the best one that we've played, I reckon, so far. And I would heavily recommend you all to check out Lost in Vivo. It's like $10. It's made by the guy who did Spooky's House of Jump Scares. Right. But it's real good. That game scared the bejesus out of me. So I've been playing RE2 again, and I'm not getting scared by it, like at all.
Yeah, I think RE2 is a great game, and I think the remake is great, and I do like Resident Evil a lot, but I like them as more action games, I guess.
Yeah.
I do see them as that. I feel like with Resident Evil, you end up, even the more core kind of horror ones, let alone the more action-based ones like RE5 and 4, you end up with a lot of weaponry in those games.
You become a tank.
And you do actually have a way of dealing with a threat. For me, horror is best when it kind of disempowers you, which is why I'm such a fan of Layers of Fear and Amnesia, which you also mentioned, James, a bit. And even something like Fatal Frame or Project Zero, Koei's one, where you have a way of defending yourself as such, but because it's just a camera, it feels like it's it doesn't feel like you're loaded up to the max with weaponry. So I like it when there's that atmosphere of disempowerment, and that's why I like Silent Hill as a horror game over Resident Evil.
You would very much like Lost in Vivo, my dude. You should try it.
Okay, I'll try it.
It's worth it.
But just on Silent Hill, what I liked about Silent Hill, and the reason I think that the later Silent Hill games didn't quite work as well is, ironically, the later Silent Hill games were made better as video games. The early Silent Hill games were absolutely horrible to play, and because they were horrible to play, the monsters had a much greater sense of threat, and you felt a lot weaker in the face of them. So it's one of those interesting ones. I feel like the better or the more refined...
The better the game, the worse the
game. Exactly. It's a really odd one. Like another example of that is the Evil Within and its sequel. I think they're good, well-made games, and they're a lot of fun to play, but because they're well-made, I don't get scared by them because I always feel like I've got the tools I need to deal with the threat.
I want to change that wording around. It's not that they're well-made games, it's that they control well. and you can
Yeah.
interface with the game in a reasonable manner.
They're well made in the action sense. They're
Yeah.
not so well made in the horror sense because they're too empowering. So it's an interesting genre. And I know other people have had that debate too about tank controls, as in the early Resident Evil games, which took 20 hours to turn around, because you're on those kind of clunky tank controls. That worked for me as a horror mechanic, I think, better than these kind of more precise controls that you have these days. So,
Well,
I
yeah.
definitely agree with you on the Amnesia front. Yeah, definitely. Like, I think Amnesia was the first game I played. Well, that was a horror game where it was like there are monsters or whatever. There's enemies, but you physically cannot do anything, and it completely turned for me anyway on the tables in terms of not having, as you said, a big weaponry or having anything to really defend yourself. It became much more about hiding. And in actual fact, I think the majority of the scares in Amnesia probably come from actually nothing being there. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
very
there's
it's very
nothing
psychological. It's you freaking out about the environment around you and you expecting something to happen, and it plays very much on that fear of what I guess a lot of tropes you get in standard horror things do, and it very much makes you kind of try and work against all of that and hide or run away or work out when you're going to even try and turn a light on, because you don't want to attract enemies, but at the same time you're slowly going insane in the darkness. But
you should definitely give Layers of Fear a go, James.
Like
I think you'll like Layers of Fear, especially the second one. You should definitely give it a go.
You can pick up Layers of Fear 1 for like $5 most of the time as well now. Like it's always on sale. Yeah, and Layers of Fear 2 is $44, I believe, Australian. So it'll be like £20 or something for you.
It's not
Is
bad.
that collection on Switch both of them? Or
No, that's just the original game and the DLC for the original game.
Oh, okay.
It's Inheritance.
Yes,
Yeah, so give that a whirl.
Switch Layers of Fear 2 is not actually on Switch at the moment.
They won't be able to run on Switch for a while.
Yeah, it'll
Just
take a lot of optimization to get there if they do.
Be some CD Projekt Red style optimization.
Yeah. That's going to be a horror game in its own way.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm going to play that. That's going to be my playing game. I get to play Witcher 3 all over again on Switch. That's going to be so exciting.
Do you know what's not scary, Alan?
What?
Do you know what's not scary at all?
What is not scary?
Tifa's boobs.
When they poke your eyes out, they will be. And that was a bit of music from Layers of Fear 2. So we're going to be talking a little bit this week as well about a newly released game that I'm personally pretty excited for because it looks like my sort of thing. And we've actually got the reviewer from digitallydownloaded.net on the podcast as well. Hello, Harvard.
Hello, the pressure.
Yeah, this is your fault now.
Alan, you should probably tell people what game you're talking about.
No, I refuse. No, this is now a mystery. It's a murder mystery. Yeah, it's My Neighbor Pedro. My Neighbor Pedro? My friend Pedro.
My neighbor Pedro.
It's like My Neighbor Totoro, except if Totoro tells you to kill everybody.
Horrible murder, yes. Look, I want My Neighbor Totoro as like a murder machine game. That'd be cool. Yeah, My Friend Pedro. It's the new It's
the new Devolver Digital game.
Can you take over, please?
The new Devolver Digital game is a game called My Friend Pedro, and it's about a sentient banana with a smiley face on it, and he tells you to commit horrible acts of murder while looking cool. And
I can respect that.
It's like a platformer game that's, to me, feels a bit like Super Hot because you have the chance to turn on a very powerful slow-mo and then do backflips and stuff and twist through the air and while shooting everybody. So it's very much a game about looking cool while you're committing horrible acts of murder. And that's kind of like a studio style for Devolver Digital and everything they publish,
It
right?
really is, yeah, because they've got Hotline Miami obviously set off that trend. And then you've got recently Katana Zero, which is still banned in Australia.
Yeah, and Ape Out too, which has kind of got like
And
the same
Ape Out.
really stylish
And they had another game. I can't remember the name of it now, unfortunately, but it was based on the kind of Italian crime films of the 60s. What was it called? I can't remember what it's called, to be honest. But yeah, it was also super violent. And yeah, it definitely seems like a thing for Devolver at the moment.
I mean, I get that if you look at the Devolver E3 presentations, that kind of senseless violence is done for comedic effect, right?
Yes.
And it's the same kind of stuff that you see on Adult Swim or like the Eric Andre show where they just like shoot somebody and it's funny because you don't expect it. But I think in a game context, I mean, first of all, to ask, you guys played Hotline Miami, right?
Yeah, I love that game.
Would you say that game is anti-violence in its narrative or in its mechanics?
I think in its narrative, yeah, in its mechanics, no, because it's fun to do the thing, but the game is telling you why is this fun to do. Why do you think this is fun to do? But then it's just fun because you can do cool stuff and horribly murder like a room of people.
Yeah, I think
it is like it criticizes it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
some level of
it's broadly critical, I think, of violence.
Yeah, and I think with My Friend Pedro, I didn't get as much of that. Like there's missions where you kill adult gamers who are they have no sense of how to be a human being because they've been too much violence in games. I can't even say it. And so they run at you with like katanas and you just shoot them. And I don't feel like that's really a commentary on game violence as much as it is like, here are various reasons why these guys are okay for you to shoot. And like,
yeah, I mean, they are also
feels cool,
gamers. Right? Have they had
like,
their regular gamer juice?
Yeah. I don't know, man. They dress like hipsters. They dress like the guy from Yick. That's what I thought. They have like red hair and glasses.
No. Oh,
But anyways, I'm just like, they give you points and like a score rating for how cool you kill them. You can do things like dual wield your guns and like kill two people at once and stuff like that and start a multiplier. And it just feels like something that you do in Peggle, where the mechanics are designed to make you feel awesome and like you're having fun, but it's, you know, killing people. So is that problematic or is that just...
I don't know if it is, because film has been doing this for a while as well. And I think this game is trying to emulate a lot of like the John Woo sort of stuff. Where it's
I think also, I mean, when you were playing Harvard, you were thinking about how you were desensitized to violence, right?
Not really.
Is that, I mean, well, you wrote about it in your review.
I did,
so obviously you
like...
thought about it. If you thought about it and if the game caused you to think about it, is it on some level deliberate, I guess is the question. Because certainly I think people are desensitized to violence in video games. I mean, if you look at
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat's an extreme example, but Mortal Kombat's satirical about it. But if you look at a game like Fortnite or Overwatch, these are games that people don't even question about the violence, and yet they are extremely violent games. It's cartoonish violence, but it is still violence, and it's at the point where, you know, you walk down the street and you're out and about, and there are, you know, 10-year-old kids with Fortnite backpacks and stuff, and you just wonder, well, obviously they're playing the game, should they be? But yeah, I don't know. Just the fact that you kind of latched onto that theme and decided to discuss about it, talk about it in your review, Harvard, tells me that there's something in my neighbor. My friend is my best mate.
My neighbor is Pedro.
My banana is Pedro.
Oh, don't say that.
He is literally a banana, though.
No, I know, but the phrasing of my banana is Pedro.
Whatever it's called, the fact that you were kind of cottoned onto that as the thing that you wanted to talk about in the context of that game tells me that there's something there, Harvard. I haven't played it, so
I mean, to me, it's like everyone's going to mention the Hotline Miami similarities because there's those games where when you kill somebody, there's like bright neon lights and says like you earn this many points. Fantastic, lovely, awesome. Except I remember there being that subtext in Hotline Miami, whereas I was looking for it in My Friend Pedro, I didn't really find it.
It might just be one of those things where, you know, the message may not be conveyed particularly well. And even just that hint, like maybe, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
It doesn't feel like a messagey game. It definitely feels more of a stylistic game. And I get what you mean when you say like the John films. It is just like playing that film, right? It is just like putting on slow-mo and doing a ridiculous kill, and at the end of the level getting a highlights reel of the coolest thing you did. I think if that's what you're into and you want a playable version of that, then yeah, the game's awesome, and I enjoyed it a lot as well. I'm just overthinking it right now, I think.
So what you're saying is, Harvard, when you're playing a video game, you want less John Blue, more Oliver Stone.
Who's that?
Matt's an art wanker.
Sometimes I forget that you're all kids and I'm like 50 years old. Oliver Stone's the director of Apocalypse Now. He's a very famous director for being very, you've heard about that film. Oh my God. Can we cut to music now? I feel very stupid. This is sad.
Music from My Neighbor Pedro.
Can we put on music from Hotline Miami? Because that soundtrack is...
No, because it's going to be horribly, horribly copyrighted, I'm afraid.
Oh, what?
Yeah, because it's all real music.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, Moon's like the artist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what's funny? I read an article about saying that Hotline Miami is kind of like gamified the movie Drive with Ryan Gosling. And I was like, yeah, it is.
I haven't watched that movie.
It's quite a good movie.
Yeah.
It's got the same, like,
you've watched
very
that,
violent,
but you don't know who
neon,
Oliver Stone is. I'm so pissed off about this now.
All right, well, we're going to go to music.
Okay, I only did film studies at university.
You only did film studies at university. You still don't know who Oliver Stone is. Oh my God. This is terrible.
Just watch Metropolis instead.
Oh, yeah. I taught that once.
Go to music.
And welcome back, everybody. So, for the last section of the podcast this week, before you escape us, we're going to talk about sports games, and particularly our top 3 sports games. This is going to be the start of a new feature on the digitally uploaded podcast, where we talk about kind of the top 3 for each of us for various genres and other bits and pieces, and each week the topic will change. So this week we are doing sports games, and let's start with Alan. Alan, give us your top 3 sports games. Give us your top 3 sports games just off the top of your head without thinking about it, and tell us why.
Okay, NHL 19 or whatever the heck the new NHL game is of the year, because it's going to generally be an improvement. Then Mario Strikers Charged on the Wii, because it was great.
Oh, that's a great game.
That's
Yeah.
I haven't tried it.
SSX Tricky.
SSX Trixie.
Yeah.
Trixie.
SSX Trixie. Yeah, no. All those 3 games, very different styles. NHL 19 is still a game that I play semi-regularly. Like, I'll pop in for a couple of matches because, again, playoffs just happened, so I was in an NHL mood anyway. Yeah, it's real good. If you like hockey, you're gonna like NHL. It's that good. It's very, very strong. Strikers is the best football game ever made because you can shoulder charge Peach as Donkey Kong into an electric fence, and I like that. It's also like a really fun football game. It's the Mario Kart of football, and if you like that sort of like pretty skill-paced gameplay, but also like, you know, dumb nonsense that can happen, you'll like Strikers. And SSX Tricky is like the greatest game ever made, basically, as far as I'm concerned. It has Run DMCs. It's tricky as the theme.
Trixie.
It's tricky. It's good. It's a fantastic game. I wish they would re-release it, but I know they probably won't be able to because of the whole licensing thing. And because
I know I'm going to sound very old right now. Well, not old, just
you're gonna say like snowboard kids or some nonsense.
Missed the boat completely. What's SSX Trixie? Is that snowboarding? Is it?
Yeah, it's a downhill snowboarding game where you basically are pushed to do as many tricks as possible to upgrade your boost meter.
Okay.
And then, so the idea is that you can't just be going fast, because if you're going fast on its own, you're not going to win the race. You have to do tricks as well during the race to get more boost, so you can then like get faster and get ahead of people.
Gotcha.
It's really, really, you'd love it. It's very arcadey. It's also very focused and has, like I said, an absolute banger of a soundtrack because SSX Tricky is built around Run DMC's It's Tricky. And I love that song. It's so corny. It's perfect. It's perfect for that game. Yeah, those 3 are the 3 ones that I would say are the most like me sports games. I also don't consider racing games sports games because they're their own thing. So
you don't consider F1 a sports game?
No, I think it's a racing game.
Okay.
I agree that it's a sport, but I wouldn't consider it a sport in the similar vein of like, you know, NHL or FIFA or whatever.
Gotcha. Just one question before we move on to James. I'll give James a second to collect his thoughts, but I do have one question for you, Alan. The new NHL game,
1999. Yeah, we're going to go back to 1999.
Does it have the retro control?
It does,
options?
But you're wrong if you're playing it like that.
Because I like to play with the Super NES one, which
you are
is like
limiting yourself beyond
2 buttons,
reasonable
pass
belief.
and shoot. That's all I care about. Pass and shoot, pass and shoot. That's all that matters.
You can play with that, but you're gonna be horribly like beneath competition if you play anyone who's using the stick controls.
Yeah, I don't play online. I just play.
No, even just like on like couch, like you're not gonna have a good time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's a really good game though. If you want to play it like that, you can play it like that. There's also like the threes mode, which is pretty fun. It's just like a higher speed 3-on-3 game. And also like the 1-on-1 game as well, which is just like you try and take shots at a goal. And it's great. It's fun. It's a really fun game. I enjoy it quite a lot.
Cool.
Yeah.
James, tell us your 3 sports games just off the top of your head.
So I'm really, really horrendously bad at all sports games. It's just not a genre that I can do. So I like it. If I'm going to play a sports game, for me, it's got to be arcadey. So I can't do the proper ones like hockey, footballs, whatever. So yeah, SSX Tricky definitely up there for me. That's a great game. And then it came out roughly around the same time as Tricky, like in that whole kind of PS2 era. Did you ever play a game called Freakstyle? It was basically SSX, but on like mountain dirt bikes.
Yeah, I remember that. The Dave Mirra Freestyle.
I think No,
with Dave Mirra and downhill.
it came out at the same time. It came out at the same time,
Yeah.
I think. But yeah, it's basically SSX, but on dirt bikes. But that was awesome as well. And then yeah, like I said, it's pretty much got to have something exploding in it. So the third one would be probably Burnout 3.
Yeah, that's a good game.
Which was, I know we said a second ago that maybe consider that a racing game rather than a sports game, but yeah,
but that was
3
Alan. Alan's opinion doesn't count. So.
Okay, yeah, I can't do
Great.
sport unless the cars have got guns on them or someone's blowing up or dying. I can't do sports games.
Gotcha. Yeah. Harvard.
Just play FIFA 19. You fit right in. All right, Harvard, take it away from me.
Yep. Okay. So I have a very loose definition of what sports game means. So my first one is going to be Golf Story, because
That's a sports game.
Oh yeah, I bought that on Switch, but I've not played it yet.
You should definitely play it. It's great.
It's Australian, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Australian. It's tangentially about golf. It's more of like a kind of like a character building RPG with like a really funny story, and instead of RPG battles, there's golf. It's much better than that sounds. And
it's basically
shit.
It's basically like the spiritual successor to the Mario Golf games on the Game Boy back when
okay.
They were RPG likes.
You remember when they were making all the sports into RPGs on the Game Boy? That's a throwback to that. But I like that. Well, I just like the idea of golf games because I'm never going to have enough money in my life to play golf. So I like to live out that fantasy.
That's really sad.
Second one is Jet Set Radio, because I am permanently in that mindset of like late 90s, early 2000s, extreme sports is cool kind of vibe. And
so Tony Hawk.
But Tony Hawk was more about the tricks, and Jet Set Radio was more about the style. And I think if you learn the game is more about learning the maps and just getting used to the city and knowing where the good rails are. And then once you get that, you have so much fun playing that game. And the soundtrack is amazing too. That's probably like my.
This is Future or original?
Original.
Okay, Future is a banger.
Future is a better game and potentially a better soundtrack, but harder to find.
It is way harder to find.
It's like that thing you were saying about horror games too. Is like the thing that makes the original good is that it's also a bit janky. And no,
I don't understand that in like a game that's built around score attack. Can you elaborate?
Well, it's like it just feels more like DIY to me. It doesn't feel like a big developer made it. It feels like, even though it was Sega, but
yeah, I was gonna say like Sega, known for being a big developer.
Carefree, make whatever you can work to your own terms kind of vibe to me.
Okay. I don't know if I understand still, but I respect the opinion.
It's like once you've gotten used to these weird controls and this like weird game style with the jank, it becomes yours, and you just feel comfortable with it because like other people are gonna get tripped up by all these weird mechanics, and you're just like, oh yeah, it's totally normal.
Oh, okay. So you just like being a master of a game that kind of is broken.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I understand you.
And last one, I'm just gonna say Steep because I've sunk too many hours into Steep.
Steep is all right.
It's very all right, but it's very like gives you things to do.
It's the most aggressively like 6 out of 10 game that I've ever played.
you know,
at least a 7 out of 10.
You know, Harvard plays an awful lot of sports games where his top 3 includes an aggressively all right game.
I don't know. I've just never gotten too deep into hardcore sports game, or just like the big yearly releases.
Yeah, because they're so heavily broken with microtransactions that if you want to play that stuff online, you're just not going to be able to.
No, it's just like
and the learning process is not fun. I'll give you that.
Yeah, that's true. The learning process is not fun. If you're not learning with someone who is also invested in getting really good at it, it's just like, why am I playing this?
Yeah, you need to have someone to either teach you how to play, it's not fun to sit through like a single player campaign. I will say they've tried really hard with FIFA though, because the journey mode is pretty good at like getting you into it and like teaching you mechanics, which is good. But yeah, that's still like, it's not why you're there. You're not there to play football against the computer. You're there to play football against, people like either in the room or online.
Yeah.
It's the quintessential football.
I play against AI. I enjoyed my sports games.
Oh,
I'm a big fan of sports games, actually. People don't realize that because maybe I talk too much about TIFA'S boobs as opposed to sports
And we're
games.
cutting it there.
But
That's it. We've done it in all 3 segments.
I'm a big fan of. I am a big fan of sports games. I guess for my top 3, well, the first one I'd have to go with is based purely on what my Nintendo Switch says is my most played game of all time. Is Football Manager 18.
Guessed it.
Football Manager 18. I think I've sunk an ungodly number of hours into that. I do love the series. I buy them all. Totally appreciate that for 99.99% of the population, they are just ridiculously obscure and no fun. But I don't know. I don't like spreadsheets in real life, but when I'm managing football teams, I have a good time with it. So, yeah, I do enjoy my Football Manager. For my second choice, I'm going to go with Beach Spikers.
What?
Beach Spikers. Beach Spikers. Beach Spikers was a
volleyball game.
beach volleyball game that Sega developed and released back on the GameCube and PS2 era. I think it was also an arcade game. But it's actually a proper sports game as opposed to, well, an arcadey one, but a proper take on beach volleyball as opposed to something like Dead or Alive's take on beach volleyball. So it's actually, proper volleyball mechanics, and it was really good. I think volleyball is actually a sport I really enjoy in real life, and I don't think video games have ever done it a great job. And Beach Spike is probably the closest that we've had. So, yeah, that's if I was to have a wish where I was to get one new sports game based on an old property, either a remake or a new entry, it would be Beach Spikers. And then my third one is going way back. Super International Cricket on the Super Nintendo. That was a game that my brothers and I spent an awful lot of time playing, like an awful lot of time. It was basically everything we played for years, and it was quite ahead of its time. Cricket's not an easy sport to do in video games, and Super International Cricket really did a good job. So there you go.
There we go. All right.
Cricket. Play cricket. Cool. Alan, play cricket.
I don't want to.
Cricket's good. I mean, you're moving to England. You're going to have to get into this cricket thing.
I will. No, I like cricket.
Trust me, you don't have to do that.
No, but I want to. I want to go to Lord's, and I want to get glassed. That's my goal.
You can get glassed anywhere in England. Trust me.
That's a good time. All right. Yeah. No, I don't know. I probably won't ever play a cricket game. I don't know why. I won't. I don't know. I played Wii cricket, and that was the worst thing I've ever done in my life. So
I love the Wii cricket, actually.
Will you like swing the bat with your hands?
No,
that was a Wii cricket game, and it was interesting.
And it had motion control, so you could play with the swinging the bat, and it was. I actually really enjoyed that game, believe it or not. I had a lot of fun with that.
All right.
Because when I bought it, it came with an accessory for the bat.
Oh, it came with a big bat.
Yeah. So you stuck your Wiimote into the accessory, and it did absolutely nothing except convince you to stand up and start swinging the bat around like an idiot. So I had a lot of fun with that. It was good. It was great.
And with that, we're going to go to some music and end it for the week. So, that's going to be the wrap.
For the last song, it's going to be Tifa's theme.
Okay. Bye.